never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like this. I'm far away from Earth and I wanna know if you exist. Mission control, do you read me? Send me my coordinates lately. Mission control, am I drifting? Tie me to someone who will love me, yeah. Wait, I think I'll last a bit longer. Fine.
Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd family part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. I don't know if you look real closely on the complete total number of subscriptions we have here on the channel, but if you do, you'll realize we've gained a few subscribers in the last week or so, and I really appreciate that. I really enjoy seeing the channel continue to grow, even though it is slowly. To me, it's still a wonderful thing. I mentioned when I got to 500, and I mentioned when I got to 1,000 that I was surprised the channel got that big. So as we slowly but surely approach 1,100, it continues to amaze me because I never thought it would happen. So continue telling your friends and family and co-workers and everybody you see about the channel. Make sure you continue to like the videos, give the video a thumbs up, and share the video on each and every social media platform that you are on. And you know by now that we post just about every single day, so you have plenty of chances to share the videos on social media. And since it is a Tuesday, we are exactly 2 weeks away from Grace and I's 12-year wedding anniversary. Everybody that follows the channel knows by now that we got married the week of Christmas. The year we got married, 2011, we got married on a Monday, and Christmas was actually on a Sunday that year. So we got married the week of Christmas. This year just so happens that it's the week before Christmas because anniversary is on a Tuesday and Christmas is the following Monday. But we are going to try our best to go to a restaurant and shoot a video that day about the restaurant and talk about some of the food options they have wherever we go that day. But the reason why I mentioned the channel continuing to grow is because I've had more people come to me and ask me about my thoughts on the college football playoff poll. I'll give a few more thoughts coming up here later on in the video because I want to talk about some transfer portal players that announced they are transferring yesterday. Now, yesterday was the first official day that you could transfer, but if you follow the channel, you know that over the weekend in one of my videos, I forget which day it was, I talked about how there were almost 500 players who had already announced they were transferring, but they announced it before it became official. Yesterday was the first official day of it. So the players that I've already talked about, I'm going to try to not talk about again because if you follow the channel, you've already heard about them. But a lot of those were players from smaller teams or backup players, whereas a lot of the players who announced they were transferring yesterday are big time starters at big time programs or big time backups at big time programs. And a few of them caught me by surprise. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But first, I want to tell you that this weekend is a big weekend in the independent wrestling world as far as refereeing goes. For me, Saturday night, I'll be at 244 Livestock Road, Easton Nolly, Georgia, for SWA. This is our annual Toys for Tots show. We do it at our December show each year. We ask everybody, when you walk in the door and get your ticket, to please bring a toy. It doesn't have to be a big toy. It doesn't have to be a significant toy or a huge toy or an expensive toy. But bring a toy, because there are several hundred kids in the North Georgia, Northeast Georgia, and upstate South Carolina area that otherwise, without our gifts, will not get a Christmas. So when you come out Saturday night to 244 Livestock Road, Easton Nolly, Georgia, when you walk in the door, just bring a toy with you. It can be a cheap $10 toy. Believe me, the kids that do not get a Christmas, a $10 toy means the world to them. So we're not asking you to buy something expensive or extravagant. Just a regular store-bought toy is good enough. Doors open at 6 o'clock. Bell time will be 7 o'clock. Tickets are only $5. The Alpha Boss will be there. Tower will be there. And if you have not seen Tower in person, his name is Tower because he's the size of a tower. He's like the Big Show in real life. Young DC will be there. Billy Starr, who is the SWA Premier Champion, will be there. And if you follow SWA on social media, you'll see that over the weekend, Billy Starr laid down a challenge to Cade Powers. So come on out Saturday night and see if Cade Powers accepts the challenge. Austin Thorne will be in attendance. TJ Trigger will be there. Kirkland will be there. Josh Aronson will be there. Kyle Phillips will be there. So come on out Saturday night. Support all the kids in the area who do not get a Christmas. Bring a unopened toy with you to 244 Livestock Road, Easton Nolly, Georgia. And then Sunday afternoon, I'll be at 6687 Highway 72, West Colbert, Georgia. Doors will open at 4 o'clock Sunday afternoon. Bell time will be 4:30. Now, this UWF show is called Star Clash, and I don't have time to sit here and tell you everything that you will see because it would take me a long time, but I will tell you that St. Edward will take on Justin Sane in a chairs match. Rico Gonzalez makes his UWF debut against Easy V, who's making his UWF debut. The Northside Heroes are challenging Curtis Coleman and Eli Smiles for the UWF Tag Team Championships. And if you have not seen the Northside Heroes in person, I encourage you to come out and watch them. If you ever watched WCW back in the days of the Cruiserweight division, watching Northside Heroes is like watching two cruiserweights in WCW back in the 90s. They are small, but they are, in the words of Jim Ross, quicker than a hiccup. Jacob Ashworth faces Austin Thorne for the UWF Heritage title. Vari Morales will be in action. Nick Halen versus Caleb Crocker for the UWF Heavyweight Championship. And the tag team of The Standard is taking on the Beer Joint Brawler and Kyle Phillips. And Santa Claus will also be in attendance. So as you can tell, Sunday afternoon at 6687 Highway 72 West Colbert, Georgia, UWF Star Clash is going to be an amazing show. So I hope to see all of you Saturday night in Easton Nolly, Georgia, and Sunday afternoon in Colbert, Georgia. Now, as far as some of the players transferring yesterday, as I said, a few of them caught me by surprise. Some of them didn't, but a few of them did. Let's talk about them. The first one that caught me by surprise was Kyle McCord, who was the starting quarterback at Ohio State. Anytime a quarterback who is a starter at a big-time program transfers, it always catches you by surprise because most of the time the players that transfer are backups who want more playing time. Usually the only time a starting quarterback transfers is because either he lost his job or because the coach left. In Ohio State's case, Kyle McCord hasn't lost his job and the coach hasn't left. But I mentioned last week here on the channel that Cameron Ward, who was the starting quarterback at Washington State, he officially announced yesterday that he was transferring. But rumors came out last week that he was transferring and that a number of schools had already reached out to him trying to encourage him to put his name in the transfer portal basket. Well, supposedly, according to the rumor mill, which sometimes is true, sometimes is not. In this case, I feel like it is. Ohio State was one of the programs that reached out to Cameron Ward and offered him upwards of $2 million in NIL deals to come to Ohio State. Well, Kyle McCord found out about it. He's ticked, and that's why he's transferring. But for Ohio State, that's tough because now Kyle McCord's transferring. So if you do not get Cameron Ward, you've got to go through another quarterback battle through spring because you ran off the one you had that was starting. Defensive lineman for Texas A&M, Walter Nolan. Quarterback, Oklahoma, Dillon Gabriel. He's another one that at first caught me by surprise because he's been there 2 years. Last year, he had a lot of health issues. This year, he was healthy all year and had a pretty good season. So you wonder, why is he transferring? Until I found out that Oklahoma has a 5-star quarterback coming in that they're very high on, and Dillon Gabriel may have thought, I'm going to lose my job, and I'm not losing my job to a freshman, so I'm just going to leave. But the one school to look out for in this scenario is the Bulldogs in Starkville, Mississippi State, only because this past year, Oklahoma's OC was Jeff Lebby, who is now the head coach at Mississippi State, and Mississippi State's quarterback, Will Rogers, is transferring. So they've got Dillon Gabriel's former OC as the head coach, and they have no quarterback. Quarterback, UCLA, Dante Moore. And then Will Howard, who was the quarterback at Kansas State. He announced it last week, but it became official yesterday. Wide receiver, Notre Dame, Tobias Merriweather. Quarterback, Coastal Carolina, Grayson McCall. Now, Grayson McCall has had a really good career, but nobody knows about it because he plays for Coastal Carolina. But Jamie Chadwell, who was the former head coach at Coastal Carolina, left after last season to become the coach at Liberty. And as soon as Jamie Chadwell left, Grayson McCall put his name in the transfer portal basket. Well, then he changed his mind and decided to stay at Coastal. Well, now, this time around, he's actually transferring from Coastal. The guy that was the backup quarterback at Utah, but ended up starting quite a few games this year because of the injuries to Cam Rising, Bryson Barnes is transferring, and probably one of the guys that was one of the biggest names for a quarterback who has not played any significant time yet, and that was Brock Vandagriff of Georgia, who announced his official transfer portal spot yesterday. I'm not surprised by that because all signs are pointing to Carson Beck returning next year. And if you follow Georgia, you know that whoever Kirby Smart's quarterback is his quarterback. Kirby Smart does not change quarterbacks unless they get hurt. Every quarterback he's has had their job until they've gotten hurt, and then they've lost their job due to being hurt. And I feel like if Carson Beck was your quarterback this year and he's coming back next year, Brock Vandagriff is going to be a backup again. Now, Brock Vandagriff and Gunnar Stockton, to me, are both extremely overrated. They're maybe at the most 4-star guys. I'd say they're high 3-star, maybe 4-star. Anybody that says that Brock or Gunnar's a 5-star is crazy. They're not that good. But of the two, I think Brock is a little bit better than Gunnar. But I've told every Georgia fan I know for the last 3 years, every time they mention all these quarterbacks coming in, I say, why does it matter? You're crazy if you think Georgia's going to have 9 quarterbacks sitting on the bench. That's not going to happen. These players are going to transfer. And Brock Vandagriff is the first one to do it. Now, I don't know if Gunnar Stockton will transfer or not because supposedly Gunnar Stockton's family knows Mike Bobo. So I think even though he'll be the backup again, Gunnar will return because, to my knowledge, Bobo's back next year. Now, if Bobo leaves Georgia, Gunnar Stockton might leave, but I think he'll stay outside of that. But you can't be surprised by that because this day and time with the whole transfer portal thing, these quarterbacks who think they're 5-star players are not going to sit on the bench. They want to play. They'd rather go to a small program and start than be where they are and be a backup. Now, initially they go because you go to a big-time program, you can win a national championship. I get that. But after a while, you're tired of being on the bench and you want to play. But I had somebody else ask me about the whole 14 playoff thing. And if you follow the channel, you know that I have mentioned numerous times it's a terrible idea. And the reason why is because there are no rules. They can do what they want to and put in who they want to because there's no rules. And when there's no rules, nobody can confront you and say, hey, you know, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, because there's no rules. College football is the only sport that has a playoff system with no rules. The NFL has them, Major League Baseball has them, college baseball has them, college basketball has them, hockey has them, NASCAR has them. Every other sport has rules on how to make the playoffs, and everybody knows those rules. College football doesn't have them. Until they get them, this is going to happen every year. And I'm not convinced it's not going to happen next year. Because, yeah, we're going to 12 teams, but I have not seen anything from anybody that says starting next year, this is how to make the playoffs. So to my knowledge, it's still going to be a committee sitting around a table voting on who they think the best teams are. And the problem is, even though they tell you they watch all the games, they don't. It is humanly impossible for somebody to watch that much football. There's not enough hours in a day to watch that much football unless you sit on a couch for 5 days straight and do not move. And if you've got a family, that does not happen. They might watch bits and pieces of each game, but they're not watching every game in its entirety. If they tell you that and you believe it, you're a fool, because that's not so. But the problem is, when it's opinion based, you can ask 20 people who the best 4 teams are, and you're probably going to get at least 10 different answers, because nobody is going to see every team the same. Everybody is going to show some kind of bias towards somebody, because that's how we are as humans. Very few people look at it from a realistic point of view. You look at it based on the team's history, or their coach, or their quarterback, or their receiver. Everybody does that. So the committee does the same thing. But the problem is, they have no rules. So they can put one team in based on the eye test, put a next team in based on their schedule, put the next team in based on how they look right now, put the next team in based on what they did a month ago, and you can't do anything about it because there are no rules. You can win your conference and not get in. You can lose your conference but still get in. Why? Because there are no barriers, there are no parameters, there are no rules. Now, I mentioned this, it might have been in yesterday's video, that this is the least surprised that I have been since the playoffs started. I knew Saturday right away when Alabama won, I said, Florida State's not getting in, because Michigan is undefeated, Washington's undefeated, and they're up there in the top 2 spots, because I knew as soon as Bama beat Georgia, Georgia's going to fall. So the top 2 teams are Washington and Michigan. They're not falling. Well, with Bama beating Georgia, there's no way they're leaving Bama out of the playoffs. It's just not going to happen. And the only way to put Bama in is to put Texas in, because they played head-to-head. Texas beat them. So you can't justify putting Alabama in unless you put Texas in. So if you have to put Texas in and you put Bama in, then Florida State gets left out. So it shouldn't have been a surprise to anybody. So as I said previously here on the channel, I'm surprised that people are surprised. We do this every year and we feel like somebody gets shafted. In one year we had TCU, I think it was 2014, get left out. And everybody was up in arms about that. But this year, the only reason people are up in arms is because of the fact everybody, including me, hates Alabama. Everybody does. So nobody wants to see them in the playoffs because everybody hates them. Had it been any other team getting in over Florida State, nobody would have cared. But everybody hates Alabama, so nobody wants to see them make it, because everybody's scared they're going to get in and win another stinking national championship, because that's what Saban does. He coaches these teams, and they slowly get better and better as the year goes on, and then come playoff time, they're the best team in the country. But this year, I don't think they'll win it. Me personally, I think Michigan will beat them. But the problem is, the committee, they vote on supposedly the 4 best teams or the 4 deserving teams. Some say best, some say deserving. You really can't say best, because how do we know who's the best when they don't play? We know that Michigan is better than Ohio State because they played. Michigan won. We know that Washington is better than Oregon because they played not once but twice, and the Huskies won. We know Bama's better than Georgia because they played and Bama won. But outside of that, we don't know. How can we say that Michigan is better than Florida State when they didn't play? I bet you if you ask 50 people who'd win that game, you'd probably have 30 or 35 say Michigan, and the rest would say Florida State. So if our opinions vary on who is the better team, don't you think the playoff committee's opinions vary as well? If we don't know, they don't know. And if the teams don't play each other, you don't know. So it's all subjective. It's all opinionated. Ain't nobody in the country going to have the same 4 teams in the same order. So if we as fans don't have the same 4 teams in the same order, then they don't either. So unless they put out rules on how to get in, it's going to be the same way next year. So we might as well go ahead and get used to it, because the only way it's going to change is if everybody reaches out to the NCAA and demands that they make rules on how to get in, and demands that you can go to the NCAA website and find the rules. That way, we all as fans know they're following the rules. Until then, it's going to be the same way every year. But most people are up in arms because Florida State got left out because their quarterback's hurt. Yes, he is. And if you watched Florida State and Louisville Saturday night, first I want to apologize to you because that game was hard to watch. It was terrible. If you've got insomnia, that game Saturday night cured your insomnia. But Florida State had a chance to go out there and put up 35 points and show the country that they can score on offense without Jordan Travis. But all they did is show the country that without Jordan Travis, they're clueless on offense. Their second and third string quarterbacks are 2 tomato cans. They're terrible. They look absolutely awful on offense. Had they gone out there and put up 35 and beat Louisville 35-3 and still got left out, then you could say, man, they got shafted. But they looked terrible. And they played their second string quarterback against Florida, and Florida's defense is atrocious. They got ran all over by South Carolina, who has an average offense at best, and Florida couldn't stop them. And Florida State had 2 yards of offense with 4 minutes to go in the first half. So they look lost on offense. But even though their quarterback is out for the year, we still can't say with certainty that they couldn't beat Michigan, because we'll never know. We can't say they couldn't beat Texas, because we'll never know. We can say they could, we could say they couldn't. There's no way to know who's right and who's wrong because they're never going to play. So it's all opinion-based. But I can guarantee you, had Alabama went out there Saturday and beat Georgia, and there at the end of the game, when Milroe had that 10-yard run to clinch the game for Alabama, had he landed wrong and broke his leg, the committee would not say, well, we're not going to put Bama in because Milroe broke his leg. They would still be in the playoffs. Any thoughts on any of this, please feel free to let me know. And that's what gets everybody up in arms, is the fact that, yeah, Florida State's quarterback is out, but even if Bama's quarterback had gotten hurt Saturday, they'd still be in. If Michigan lost McCarthy, they'd still be in. It's all because it's Alabama, but they can do that because there are no rules. Homes for Our Troops is a publicly funded 501c nonprofit organization that builds and donates specially adapted custom homes nationwide for severely injured post 9/11 veterans. Since the 2004 inception, nearly 90 cents of every dollar spent has gone directly to our program services for veterans. Visit at hfotusa.org. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. Anybody can be buried when they die, but if you want to be cremated, you gotta earn it. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.